Hey everyone! Mavuika got nerfed in the beta, especially her team support abilities. So in this video, let's dive deep into Mavuika's latest changes. But before we get started, huge shout out to all 620 of you. We did it! Thank you so much for subscribing. We're making progress, and when we hit 1,000 subs, I'll be giving away a Welkin Moon to one lucky subscriber. The more income I get from YouTube, the more Welkins I'll give away. So make sure to comment on every video because I pick winners from the comments section and only subscribers are eligible. Now, let's get back to the video. So, what's happening with Mavuika isn't all that unusual. It's pretty common for characters to look insanely strong in their first beta, only to be adjusted as testing goes on. Take Mulani for example. She was absolutely broken in her initial beta, but got balanced out before release. This process happens with almost every character, especially high-profile ones. The version of Mavuika we're seeing right now in the beta is almost guaranteed to change by the time she's officially released. So while these nerfs might seem disappointing, they're part of the normal balancing process. The final kit will always look different from what we see in the early stages. As you probably already know, Archons are usually built to support their teams in a big way. Zhongli gives you those epic shields, and Raiden Shogun boosts your energy recharge while dealing solid damage. But Mavuika is different. From the start, she's been designed as a main DPS, focusing more on dishing out big damage herself instead of directly helping her teammates. Now, the changes in her abilities and constellations are definitely shaking things up. If you were excited about her being both powerful and versatile, you might feel differently after hearing about these nerfs. But don't worry, I'll break it all down for you. Starting with her elemental skill, the damage output of her charged attacks has been reduced. The cyclic damage went from 271.50% down to 195.5%, while the final hit damage dropped from 29.2% to 27.5%. This is a big deal, especially for players planning to rely on her charged attacks as a key source of damage. Her Ascension passive also saw a slight reduction in effectiveness. The ATK boost that triggers when a teammate uses a Knight's Burst has been lowered from 35% to 30%. While the change may seem small, it chips away at her ability to synergize with the rest of her team, steering her further toward being a self-sufficient damage dealer. Moving on to her Elemental Burst, the adjustments here are even more impactful. The damage bonus for the active party member, which is based on her fighting spirit, now scales at 0.2% per point instead of 0.25%, and the maximum bonus has been reduced from 50% to 40%. What's more, this bonus decays over 20 seconds until it reaches 0, making it less reliable in longer fights. This change pushes her burst away from being a strong team support tool and makes it more about her personal output. Even her constellations, which are supposed to elevate her gameplay, have been scaled back. At C6, her normal attack damage was reduced from 130% to 90%, and her charged attack damage was lowered from 180% to 120%. These changes make her constellations feel less game-changing, though they still provide solid boosts for players willing to invest heavily. These nerfs collectively narrow Mavuika's role, firmly planting her as a selfish hyper carry. Her damage potential remains high, but the reductions to her team utility and overall damage scaling mean she's less flexible than some players might have hoped for. For example, her Elemental Burst, which previously offered stronger support to teammates, now feels more focused on enhancing her personal performance. If you're looking for a character who can elevate an entire team, these changes might be disappointing. However, if you want a unit who can dominate as a main DPS, Mavuika still has a lot to offer, especially with the unique mechanics in her kit. A recurring theme with Mavuika is how much she now depends on constellations to unlock her full potential. Her C4, for instance, removes the decay on her Elemental Burst's damage bonus and even adds an extra 10% boost. This essentially brings back some of the power lost in the base nerfs. While this makes her a powerhouse at higher constellations, it also raises concerns for free-to-play players or those who only plan to pull for C0 without investing in multiple copies. You're left with a less impactful version of her, which feels like a shift in how Archons have traditionally been designed. Additionally, Mavuika is still an exciting character, and her unique playstyle as a pyro DPS makes her stand out. But the recent nerfs in the beta make her more focused on personal damage and less about helping her team. If you're planning to pull for her, you'll need to consider whether you want a pure hyper carry or if you are hoping for more team-wide utility. It's also important to remember that this is still the beta. There's time for feedback, and these changes might not be final. For now, though, what do you think of these nerfs? Are you still planning to pull for Mavuika, or has this made you reconsider? Let me know in the comments. Citlali's elemental skill and burst remain the same, but there are some changes to her passives. In her second passive talent, during the Elemental Burst Edict of Entwined Splendor, the Ice Storm damage was previously increased by 2,400% of Citlali's elemental mastery, but now it's decreased to 1,200%. Moving on to her fourth passive talent, it got a buff. Now, while in an area with phlogiston mechanics within Natlan, triggering the Night Soul Burst restores 20 phlogiston. However, this cannot take effect in domains, trounce domains, or the Spiral Abyss. Next, let's discuss her constellations. Her Constellation 4 also got a buff. Before this beta, in her elemental skill, when Cit summoned its Papa, an additional Skull Explosion dealt 1,200% damage of Cit's elemental mastery. Now, the damage bonus has increased to 1,800% of elemental mastery. Additionally, in her Constellation 6, she was providing Pyro, Hydro, and Cryo damage bonuses before this beta, but now the Cryo damage bonus has been removed completely. Well, these are all the changes to her kit in this week's beta. What are your thoughts on these changes? Let me know in the comments. See you in the next video. Love you all, stay healthy, and thanks for watching.